Hello and welcome to another hot topic. This week I'm joined by Cllr Alan Clark of Hull City Council in the Labour interest portfolio holder for street scenes, highways and streets. Alan, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, portfolio holder for street scene, that makes it sound as if you're running particular acts at the Hull Truck Theatre or the New Theatre or something like that. What does street scene mean?
It's not as exciting as what it seems. I look after cutting grass, not very well at the moment due to the fact that we haven't got any money, filling potholes, which we're very bad at doing because, well, we haven't got any money, but we are getting better. And transport, making sure we get transport links right.
Okay, a couple of themes seem to be arising here about money, which we'll come back to in a moment. A lot of money coming into the council from people using bus lanes, though. That seems to be a nice little earner for you. Millions of pounds.
Well, I wouldn't say millions of pounds. There's we've made 1.5 million over a couple of years now, and all that money gets ploughed straight back into fixing the roads. Now, not a lot of people turn around and say, well, I'm not seeing what's happening there, but when you actually dig deep, you can see where we are spending that money. We've just spent £125,000 on Newland Avenue, for example, on one street, fixing the failed services there. And we're on Hessel Road at the moment.
But if you have, so what's the reason for having these bus lanes? Is it because the bus lanes actually help traffic move through and people move through the town, when in fact they're just constraining the amount of road that's available for all other road users? Or are they there specifically as a cash cow?
Nothing's there as a cash cow. If there was there as a cash cow, we would have them 24 hours a day. And they're not. They're there for 2.5 hours a day on the inward journey and 2.5 hours a day on the outward journey. They're there to allow buses to get people into work quicker. And with a city the size of ourselves that we have over 30 million bus trips a year, which is far outweighs a lot of other cities of our weight. So we're doing really, really well when it's getting people about on buses. We'd like to see that increased.
But does that number of bus trips justify the added slowness, as it were, to all the car trips, everybody travelling by every other kind of transport in and out of the city?
Well, it's up to people how they want to get in and out of the city. They're more than welcome to use things like park and ride or the buses themselves, because not every time the buses are full, and I'd like to see them full every time. We are looking at plans for a northern park and ride at the moment, and I do believe that will come online in the next few years, of which we'll then also be looking at an eastern park and ride as well. So we are getting there. We are expanding our offering of things such as park and rides in the hope that people will get on those buses even more and we'll punch above our weight again.
What about those potholes, Alan? I mean, you say that you haven't got enough money to fill them in, but surely that is one of the fundamental purposes of local government, is to keep the roads usable and open and safe. Surely you just have to cut budgets somewhere else where it's not such a priority in order just to keep the infrastructure going.
The problem is with that is, where do you cut it? I'd rather see money going into children's services, and I'd rather see it in adult social care as well, because those two are really, really under pressure and straining with budget constraints as they are at the moment. Our city roads itself deteriorate by over £6 million a year. The government gives us less than half of that amount of money. We do top it up with some monies that we have, but there's still a negative impact. So we are changing the way that we fix our roads. So if a road is deteriorated to a point where the underneath of the surface is gone as well, we will fix that rather than just trying to stick a bucket of tar into a hole and hope for the best, because the following year it will come out.
But that's a more expensive process, presumably, the more permanent process.
It is, but it will last 20 to 30 years, where sticking a bucket of tar into a hole will last a year if you're lucky.
There's a slightly bigger infrastructure projects going on as well, as you'd expect in the city of Cllr, famous as it is for its orange barriers, which have become something of a work of art for the town, I think, in its own right, haven't they? There's a new footbridge on Castle Street. That seems to be gaining some sort of controversy. What's the problem? Just stick up a footbridge. It's not much more complicated than an elegant piece of scaffolding, is it?
Well, I think the main problem is one, we don't own the road, so we can't put a bridge over it ourselves as a council. We have to allow the landowners to do that. The land at either side has to be purchased as well, or definitely at least one side it has to be purchased. So there's negotiations that has to go on there. There's also got to be testing of the land to make sure that the footings can go in, and there'll obviously be piling that needs to go in there for it to be sturdy and steady. And we've all seen footbridges, you know, and when you want to put a proper footbridge in that's accessible to all, and you have other stakeholders such as Princess Quay, which have shown an interest that they would like a leg off or an arm off that footbridge so people can walk directly into their property, then it adds more complications into it.
Well, it seems like an opportunity, isn't it? If Princess Quay is interested, that means that there's a possibility that that bridge is worth something commercially. It's bringing in customers, and that reduces the cost to the council, doesn't it?
Well, the council wouldn't be paying. It's Highways England that's paying, so it's them that would see the lucrativeness of that. But I would suspect that they would only allow Princess Quay to pay for that section between the bridge itself and their building. It
becomes, yes, ludicrous. I think you may have got the right word when deciding who's paying for which section of a bridge.
Yeah, indeed.
That's all doing the same job. Let's move on to something a bit more seasonal. Halloween this last weekend, and the Endeavour Learning Centre was providing various sort of party-like services on the council's bill, but only for people who are unemployed. Now, there's been a certain amount of outcry about that. It seems a little bit unfair that it's discriminating against the employed.
Well, it's not just a council-funded project. I don't know too much about this, I must admit, because I've only really seen it on social media. I haven't really dug into it.
It's not an exam, Alan. Don't worry.
No, absolutely. But to be honest, I don't think it's such a bad thing with what is being suggested of it, in respect of they're trying to get people of a certain age group to engage more, and by doing that, it might get them.
A certain age group. It's the unemployed and the under 10 children. Now, there are various things you just mentioned. Children's services. There are also schools that are there to get under 10s to engage more. So, what other age group were you discriminating in favour of?
And Endeavour is a learning facility as well, so it's only going into a learning facility. You never know, the parents might want to take up some courses and better themselves and get into better employment than what they ever could have thought that they could have done themselves.
But so could employed people. I'm intermittently employed. I quite like to do a course and better myself and make vast amounts more money than I do. But why have the rule only that the unemployed are allowed to take advantage of this?
It's not my department, so
okay.
I can't give you a definitive answer.
Fair enough, Alan. I won't push you, but I raise the issue, and perhaps it's a perfectly fine answer. Talking of unemployment, though, much more importantly, in the area and the region as a whole, we're losing jobs at BAE, and that's going to, I know that's a little way out of Hull, but that's going to have a knock-on effect on the city. How do you mitigate against that?
It's a difficult one. I think the MPs need to work hard to find out, and as does BAE, to find out what people are prepared to take, if it be early redundancy or whatever. So if people have coming up to that age of redundancy, if they're the ones that go, then that wouldn't have such a detrimental effect on people who have younger families. And who are still starting out in their career. I think that helps by starting with that. If they can get the people that they want from that cohort, then all good and well. But if they can't, and then they have to start making compulsive redundancies, that's when it's really going to start biting into other areas of the local economy. Because I think the people with the younger families that are still needing that work are going to find it difficult in such challenging workplace that we've got at the moment. Although they are saying that unemployment's coming down, and Hull is leading the way forward in jobs at the moment. We seem to be outstripping everywhere else. It's just a case of how many jobs can we keep pushing forward. So,
I'll just ask you before the break, we'll come back to the economy, but as a man who looks across the river at Lincolnshire, are you worried about the future of the Red Arrows with this plant closing down?
I think we all should be worried about the future of the Red Arrows, and why they can't bring the building of them forward is anybody's guess, because he would have secured those 400 jobs without a shadow of a doubt.
It's building the Hawk trainer.
Yeah.
Alan, we can't go on any further without going on about the economy, but that's going to have to wait, I'm afraid, until after the break. Join me then in a couple of minutes' time. We'll talk about boundary changes and local government a little more with Cllr Alan Clark. Welcome back to Hot Topic. I'm still with Alan Clark, Cllr Alan Clark of the Labour Cabinet of the City of Hull. Alan, we were talking about the economy there, BA system. Let's bring it out a little bit broader into the idea of local devolution and some of the larger authorities and mayoralities that would perhaps have got Hull and the Yorkshire region great big chunks of money from central government, tens of millions of pounds over decades, and yet none of that seems to be working.
It's still early days when we talk about Yorkshire Devolution. The 17 of the 19 councils completely signed up to it now. We'd like the other two councils to come in, which being Sheffield and Rotherham, rather. But at the moment, they seem to be heavily wanting to go their own way. But their mayor will have no powers.
And but central government doesn't seem to want Rotherham and Sheffield and Barnsley and Doncaster to be in a Yorkshire entity, as it were. They want them to be sort of separate South Yorkshire entities. They're saying they're not going to agree to that. So it's going to have to be the Yorkshire minus the 4 South Yorkshire entities as a sort of principality, as it were, in its own right. Anyway.
My understanding is there is nothing in legislation that says that there cannot be one whole Yorkshire mayoralty. It just seems that the government doesn't like the idea.
Ministers have said so, that they would oppose that, specifically the Northern Powerhouse Minister and the Communities Secretary of State. How would Hull get on politically, economically, and most importantly, emotionally, as part of Greater Yorkshire?
We would sit, or the leader of the council would sit in a cabinet made up of all the other leaders of the county, and each one would have an equal say. So emotionally, accountability, we would all be equal. Everybody would be equal, and that's how it should be.
And would this just not be an unnecessary extra layer of government between city council, then county council, and then central government? Why do you need the extra layer of government when you seem to be moving along perfectly happily, except without enough money for potholes, with Hull City Council as an authority in its own right?
Because it's taking back power. Because by having devolution, it would mean that we get back power and extra monies
taking back power from
central government. So we would lay down what we would want and I'll lay some examples. We would want to be able to have the extra money so we could deal with transport across the whole of Yorkshire. We'd want extra money so we could deal with all the infrastructure across the whole of Yorkshire. There's a much urgent need to have electrification between Liverpool and Hull, and at the moment it's just not going to happen under this government, the way things are going.
This is HS3.
We like to just call it the Yorkshire link, the M62 link, but the HS3 will do fine.
Maybe at the other end of the road they'd like to call it the Liverpool link.
Hull to Liverpool, Liverpool to Hull. It's all wonderful stuff. And just those pure examples, we could then get on and get building those things without having to wait for central government. And the infrastructure issue that we have in Hull with the A63, we could just go and be doing it right now and not have to wait for government to give us a say so.
The Northern Powerhouse is George Osborne's great idea. He's gone. You always sort of felt that Hull was a bit left out of that anyway. Have you given up? You talked about transport infrastructure. Have you given up any hopes of the Northern Powerhouse coming to Hull's help?
No, I think we need to concentrate more at the moment on Yorkshire Devolution and where that's going. The Northern Powerhouse will tick on beautifully, and our leader still goes to it. I know Martin Mansey, Councillor Mansey, he still goes to the transport for the Northern Powerhouse as well. So we still have links in there, we're still talking to those people, and we're still working with them, as is every other council within the north. But we also want to concentrate on Yorkshire Devolution.
Well, you bring that up about the Northern Powerhouse. It was a Conservative idea. You're a Labour Party politician. I won't go into national Labour Party politics because that's far too amusing and frivolous for this sort of conversation, I'm afraid, at the moment. But the Boundary Commission is suggesting House of Commons boundary changes around Hull, changing the nature of the 3 constituencies presently in Hull. Hull East, especially, would become really quite a leafy suburban Tory heartland if the boundary changes were to go through. Would you say that that would be for the sake of having equal constituencies with the same number of people in them, a necessity for democracy? Would that be something you would encourage?
Well, I think it's probably Hull West that you're thinking of, not Hull East.
Well, I was thinking particularly of Hull East because it's going to take up so much of David Davis's old constituency of Hulton, Price and Howden. But Hull West as well, indeed, going into the East Riding.
It takes up only a small proportion of Hull East because it takes up Myton, and as it stands at the moment, it takes up Myton and a little bit of avenues.
Let's not have the geography. Let's just stick to the politics of it, Alan.
But I am. It's just that you seem to be trying to suggest that it's taken up more than what it actually is. It's only a very small proportion.
The fact is that it's likely to diminish the Labour representation in Parliament from the city of Hull.
Hull East would become stronger. Hull North will become stronger. The battleground would be in Hull West. That's where the battleground would be, where David Davis and Alan Johnston's old seat used to be. Emma's seat is. Now that's where it would be. That's the heart of the battleground. Some parties may say it's a 3-way seat. We say it's just a 2-way seat, being between us and them. But we believe that there's no reason why it can't be a Labour stronghold. That seat. There's plenty of people out there wanting and will vote Labour on a general election because they don't come out and do it at the moment because they don't have a Labour MP and the seat is a wasted vote. But as soon as they have the opportunity to have a Labour MP, one that will work hard, such as Emma does, then they will come out and vote. So we see it as one that we can win.
Forgive me, I was having navigational dyslexia there. You're quite right about naming the constituency, forgive me. But would that not be quite a welcome thing? Hull has been such a sort of a one-party state, a sort of North Korea by the humble as far as parliamentary representation is concerned for so long. Wouldn't you quite welcome just a bit of a parliamentary fight in the city, so at least there can be, for once, a contested seat, a seriously contested seat, and a choice?
It would be a fight, because as it stands at the moment, not even the Tory party know if they could win it. And we think we can win it. We're fairly confident that we could win it.
The Boundary Commission also wants to reduce the number of councillors on Hull City Council. As a member of a councillor on Hull City Council, how do you feel about that?
I'm in two minds over this.
I bet you are.
Purely and simply because the population's growing in the city, but the electorate, the snap in time when they took it from the electorate, it was one of its lowest points. So it's as if we don't have about 50, 60,000
So the moment when the Boundary Commission looked at your population, that's when that was at a particularly low point in the population of Hull?
That was on the electoral roll, that was registered to vote, yes. Where at the moment, the amount of people that lives in the city, but not necessarily registered on the electoral roll, is quite high. We have about 260,000, 270,000 people living in the city, but on the electoral roll, we have a lot less than that. So we need to get people on the electoral roll.
But by that argument, then, the number of people on the council would sort of fluctuate in a correlation with the number of people in the city.
Well, we're meant to represent just over 3,000 electorates per councillor. That's what they've approximated it to worked out at. But some of the wards are much bigger than others.
Geographically bigger or population bigger?
Geographically. And population as well. Because although they made a 3-member ward may turn around and say there is 9,000 electorates in here, there may be 10 or 11,000 population in there. So there's more people living in it. And you may have another one which says there is 6,000 electorates, and there may be 6,000 population in it, or 6,500 population. That's the inadequacies that I'm aiming at there.
Let's just move on. We've only got a few minutes left. The Year of Culture. How many events have you attended?
I've lost count.
Really? Oh, that's a good thing.
Honestly, yes. I try and attend something every single week.
I'm going to assume that you've enjoyed it tremendously, but I'm going to assume that also you think that this is a good thing economically, if in no other way, for the city.
It's been an amazing boost for the city. It's seen record numbers of people. To be honest, we estimated, I think, around 1 million to 1.6 million people coming into the city. We blew that away within about 6 or 8 months already, and the numbers
Just
are still
to clarify,
escalating.
you mean you exceeded that massively?
We did it. We blew the numbers away, and we exceeded it massively, and they're still coming in.
We've only got 2 months and a few days left. What's the highlights coming up for you as a Hull City Councillor?
There's still some unexpected things to come yet. I do know there's something in the pipeline. I haven't been made privy to it, unfortunately. I'm desperately trying to find out whether there's something big coming. And it's those things that come that make it a highlight for me, such as when Blade arrived or the Poppies arrived. And those really, really did transfix people.
Alan, thank you very much. I take it that when the Queen turns up next month, she'll come and say hello to you.
Well, I'm hoping she's going to pop for a cup of tea.
Well, do give her my best, won't you?
I should get my best china out.
Alan Clark, Councillor Alan Clark of Hull City Council, thank you so much for coming in, as ever. Very good to see you. Join me again next week for another hot topic.